I think if I went back in time to yesterday morning and I was sitting on the couch and me today went back to yesterday to talk to myself and say, hey, this college game day is going to be nothing too crazy, except that you're going to see Pat McAfee jump off of a high dive in a Speedo, I would have looked at myself from today and said, you're insane. You're insane. That's just not going to happen. Well, it did, and Pat McAfee is just a nut. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of College Football Under Review, a show made by a fan for football fans everywhere. And this is our Week 4 recap episode. Our headlines of the week. Command Altmaier deleted by the Hoosier defense, and Curt Cignetti finally gets the biggest win that he has had since he has gotten the head coaching job at Indiana. The Oklahoma defense absolutely swallowed Jackson Arnold for a school record for single game 10 sacks in one game for Oklahoma. And Memphis's win over Arkansas now gives them the best shot to make the playoffs with a 35% chance. And outside of those, it felt like this whole weekend was defined by statements. Curt Cignetti can win against a ranked team. Google me. Texas Tech's $28 million roster was a great investment. Brent Venables finally has his swagger back, calling plays head-to-head against Hugh Freeze calling the offense. Missouri has a complete team that can win in the SEC confidently. Josh Hoover at TCU showed us why he needs to be in the Heisman conversation. Ole Miss has a team of competitors and has a better team than last season. And UNLV just might be a miracle merchant team, winning after coming back down 14, not once, but twice against Miami of Ohio. With that out of the way, I'm your host, Nick Watts, and let's take college football under review. Now, our game of the week, our first one, I have to tell all of you all, sorry, the Nick Watts simulation was completely incorrect. I said in our preseason prediction that I will die on this Illinois sword and they will make the playoff. But last night, they did everything to embarrass my football knowledge, and I feel the tip of that sword poking my back. But hey, we said they would go 10-2, and we're still on track for that. We've got some grace. But what else can you really say about this game? Oh, wait. Indiana under Curt Cignetti has finally done it. They have finally won against a ranked team, and not just any ranked team, a top 10 conference opponent. And this is a signature win that he has needed since he's gotten there so he can silence the haters, because he really hasn't had that signature like, oh, wow, Curt Cignetti and Indiana are here, because last season everyone said it was an easy schedule, cupcake into the playoffs. Well, in this game, I felt like the momentum completely shifted, and I felt like Curt actually knew what he was doing, because it was 4th and 1 early in the first quarter, and he had his punt team out there. And the next thing you know, there's a little bit of time, and Illinois gives them time for him to change his mind. And I saw a different side of him because he went for it, which I don't think he would have last season. We didn't see him do and make those kind of gutsy play calls against Notre Dame in the playoff game when he should have. And his defense showed up amazing. Indiana's defense had 7 sacks and 10 tackles for loss and only allowed a total of 2 rush yards. 2. They just absolutely swarmed Altmaier, and he never had a chance to do anything. But when we look at the offense, Fernando Mendoza, he's developed at Indiana. And that's what Indiana seems like they're able to do. They did it with Curtis Rourke last season, and Mendoza is now playing amazing. And he continued his production against what was a 3 cupcake games the last 3 weeks. And in today's game, yesterday's game, he had 5 touchdowns and 267 yards passing. No interceptions. And this Illinois team that was really just dominant on third downs the whole season up to this point, converted just 1 of 10. 10%. 10%. Embarrassed me. Illinois lost their defensive captain to Miles Scott, by what I would say a questionable targeting call, and the game just kind of went downhill from there. It just looked like Indiana was in control. Altmaier, every time he stepped back in the pocket, there was a red helmet just bearing down on him. He just couldn't do anything. They couldn't get any kind of explosive plays going either. And the Indiana team has this wide receiver that they are calling a Waffle House, Sarant. I'm sorry, buddy, but that title is for the one and only Julio Jones. So, I mean, it's cute, but Julio was always open. Sorry. Just had to say that. But this Indiana team has their season outlook and season ceiling has skyrocketed after this. And I think the question that we all have to face looking at Indiana after this game is, can they make the playoffs again? And I think they can. So Indiana just absolutely destroying Illinois. They won 63-10. And in the first quarter, when they got the fourth down conversion and they went on to score a touchdown, and then they blocked a punt and returned it for a touchdown, I was like, oh, wow, this is not a great start for Illinois. It just was not a great game in total for Illinois. But I'm still riding high on the Illini. Just because I'm feeling the tip of the sword doesn't mean I'm jumping off it. I will fall on this sword if I have to, and I will take it with grace, as gracefully as I can. Okay? So, Illinois, please don't embarrass me again. Now, I think the ugliest game that I watched this whole weekend was Texas Tech against Utah. Texas Tech won this game 34-10, but this game was especially ugly in the first half. Just god awful. It was 10-3 going into the half, Texas Tech's favor, but there was 5 combined turnovers in the first half, and it didn't allow any team to get the momentum in this game or really get anything going. There was no consistency on either side of the ball for the defense or the offense, but Texas Tech overall just was able to get more of the explosive plays in this game. And one thing that really confused me about Texas Tech, didn't make me angry because they won the ball game, but it's questionable. I don't know why, for some reason, they didn't change their pre-snap cadence at all. They continued to use the clap for snapping the ball. In this Utah stadium is ranked in the top 25, at least in newspapers, as one of the loudest stadiums in the country. And you saw that there were a lot of false starts committed by Texas Tech early in this game. And I just kind of sat there going, what are you doing? Come on, we gotta change something. Something had to change in this game. Well, everything did change when Texas Tech's quarterback their backup quarterback came in after their starter had a real violent head hit to the ground after colliding with another player. I believe he got a concussion and was out of the game, the rest of the game. And so now you're thinking, oh, wow, Texas Tech, they're in a little bit of trouble. No, they weren't. Their backup quarterback, Will Hammond, came in and took command of this offense, throwing 13 for 16 in the second half, 169 pass yards and 2 touchdowns, and never looked back when he got behind center. And you may be thinking, well, why did he look so confident? So their starting quarterback, who got injured in this game, was injured for half of the spring. And so he had actually practiced with the starters in the offseason. So that's why he was so comfortable with them. He already had a lot of snaps with them, knew it, and was confident. And he's a highly touted recruit. And this Texas Tech defense was no slouch either. They bullied this Utah team in any short pass situation or outside run, and they just seemed to swarm the ball whenever it was outside of the pocket. And when we're looking at Utah in the pocket with Devin Dampier, he was awful, only throwing for 162 yards and 2 interceptions on the game. This Texas Tech team invested about $28 million in NIL to this roster, and it seems like it's paying off tremendously, and it was a great investment. And we'll get back to the state of Texas as a whole later in the episode. But Texas Tech coming out over Utah in a big road win is huge for this team, and they have cemented themselves, I think, as the Big 12 team to beat right now in the season going forward. So Texas Tech over Utah, 34-10, and they took command in the fourth quarter. Texas Tech scored 24 points out of those 34. And then this next game, I personally will say, it was the most fun game I had watched the whole weekend. It was my most fun game to watch. I'll put it that way. And that was Oklahoma, number 11, beating Auburn at home, ranked 22nd, 24-17. And this was a doozy of a game in both officiating, defense, offense. And I think it was my favorite because we saw two head coaches actually clashing against each other. Brent Venables, since last year, or at least coming off of last year, has been calling the defense for the games this season. And it was him calling the defense, and Hugh Freeze on the other side of the sideline was calling the Auburn offense. So we really got this true head coach versus head coach matchup, which I thought was so much fun to watch. And you really could tell that it was two very intellectual coaches on both of their sides of the ball, because the Auburn offense was able to surprise Oklahoma in certain spots, and Oklahoma's defense was able to just attack Jackson Arnold. Now, the Oklahoma defense getting 10 sacks in this game is wild because it was a school record, but they also are ranked top 5 in a lot of defensive categories, and they're so defensively sound. But one category that they are absolutely terrible in is they have 0 takeaways as a defense. They have turned it over 6 times on offense and 0. They've taken it away 0 times on defense. So they have a -6 turnover ratio right now. But they're still winning. And that's what Brent Venables said. We're a defense that's going to win the game. We don't need turnovers if we're going to stop them and win the game. And in this game, neither team was able to establish a run, which was one key I said going into this game that both of them needed to figure out because their quarterbacks can't do it alone. And they could not convert successfully on third down the majority of this game. So that tells me, and it should tell you, that the game was won by explosive plays. And explosive plays there were. There were a lot of plays for Auburn that got overturned by a review, or a lot of Auburn fans have, contacted and told me that the refs were paid by Oklahoma, but I don't think that is. We could talk bad about the refs here. We're not going to get fined like the coaches, because Hugh Freeze said in his postgame that he could not talk about anything because he did not want to get a fine. But the refs missed some crucial calls. I will say the under review for all of those, it was accurate. I mean, this is a show called Under Review. But these officials did miss some crucial plays and some crucial penalties that should have been called. What set Auburn back, though, in this game was at the very first quarter, Auburn special teams made a huge mistake early in the game in giving the ball to Oklahoma in the red zone, and they scored an easy touchdown, and they just kind of were playing catch-up the rest of the game. And because of this, the officials in this game, I said whichever coach loses is going to be back on the hot seat. I don't think that Hugh Freeze is on the hot seat, because I think the Auburn fans are more upset about the non-pass interference, or the pass interference call not being called on the Auburn trick play to Eric Singleton. And the trick play touchdown was a good play. I mean, the Oklahoma player literally wrapped up on him. He tipped the ball, so the ball was not overthrown. The ref and the official did not even see it happen. That's what made Auburn fans so mad. And then the other thing that swayed it in Oklahoma's favor was Oklahoma ran a trick play of their own, but it should have been a 15-yard penalty that the officials didn't call, and the SEC actually came out with a statement at 10:10 p.m. last night saying, yes, the refs missed this call. And I'll read you what the rule is. NCAA football rule 9-2, Article 2 is labeled unfair tactics, with paragraph B stating no simulated replacements or substitutions may be used to confuse opponents. What happened here was that Oklahoma had a player that looked like he was going off sides, going to be a substitution, and then he just ran the ball down. And no tactic associated with substitutes or the substitution process may be used to confuse opponents. This includes any hideout tactic with or without a substitution. So in reading that, it should have been a 15-yard penalty. And that's 7 points that would have gone Auburn's favor and 7 points that would have been taken away if the officials got this right, which could have led to an Auburn win. So I understand why the Auburn fans are so upset. They have every right to be. At least they were able to, say we got it wrong, but that's not going to change the outcome of the game. Now, is it Auburn fans? But we're going to go back to an argument I actually had said over in the offseason. And we said in the offseason that we need to make this transition for the NCAA referees being full-time employees like the NFL, because we have NIL and betting dollars at stake, and these two calls could have been a big swing for the game's ending result. So just a wild, crazy game filled with defense dominance and trick plays and missed calls. But what else can you say? It's a typical Auburn game when you break it down. So Oklahoma takes down Auburn 24-17, and Oklahoma, are they looking like an SEC title contender? Because they are shocking everyone right now and looking good with John Mateer and Brent Venables calling that defense. And then we go to our last game that we really had a microscope on, and that was number 23, Missouri. The Tigers beating the Gamecocks 29-20. Now, if you thought the Illinois-Indiana rush statistic was crazy, wait till you hear this. The Gamecocks were able to get not any positive rushing yards at all. They went -9 for the game in rush yards, and Missouri rushed for 285. That's almost a 300-yard difference. That should tell you enough how just inconsistent this South Carolina team has become. And speaking of inconsistent, Lenore Sellers, he cannot decide if he wants to be a trash can of a player or he wants to look like a prime Cam Newton, because this is the most inconsistent guy I have seen this season. He will throw a 50-yard dot for a touchdown and run with speed and elusiveness like Cam Newton, or he'll just make the dumbest decision throwing and just not having any awareness in the backfield and taking stupid sacks. But not getting too negative on this game. The positive you got to look at Missouri is Amon Hardy. I got a friend that texted me against Kansas, Amon Hardy's the real deal. He told me that. And he's really starting to become the backbone of this Missouri team. And I'll tell you why. You may be thinking it's Bo Prabula, but no. Amon Hardy in the last 4 weeks in every game has had over 100 yards rushing. Over 100 yards rushing. Yes, not just 100. And has had at least one touchdown each game. If you can't tell me that is not a backbone of the offense, I don't know what is. Amon Hardy is just getting it done for the Tigers. And I think when we're talking about the Tigers, these SEC teams really should start respecting the Missouri Tigers because they have experienced coaches that is complementing and utilizing the talented roster that they have culminated to make some noise this season. Because Missouri, the last 3 seasons so far, even though this season isn't finished, has gone 25-4-5 with Eli Drinkwitz. Last season was wild that they had 2 double-digit winning seasons back-to-back. That had not happened in about a decade. Now they're looking like they're going to be on track to get 3 years in a row of double-digit winning seasons. And I had this game on a microscope outside of the others because I was very curious to see, one, how did South Carolina react to the loss against Vanderbilt? And now 10 days ago, they were the 11th ranked team in the nation. And how are they going to respond? And I wanted to also see, is Missouri legit? Because South Carolina, with how inconsistent they are, could have snuck one out. But Missouri stayed strong, and they won 29-20. And Bo Pribula still looking like a great, consistent quarterback. This offense and the production that we kind of thought that it might dip a little bit has completely stayed the same. And I think it's because Missouri has found their head coach, Eli Drinkwitz, and he's going to continue to be the coach at Missouri. And I like him. He's a very likable guy. He hasn't done anything to ruffle feathers except for probably making some South Carolina Gamecock fans pretty angry. And that finishes our kind of top games of the week. But we got to look at some other notable games around the country. So TCU wins the last scheduled meeting so far of the battle for the Iron Skillet, 35-24, beating SMU. And I think we really need to start having this Josh Hoover character in the Heisman. This quarterback at TCU, he has over 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions so far this season. And his odds from the beginning of the season for the Heisman have gone from plus 34,000 to 1 to 1,400 to 1 odds. So I think we're starting to see the rise of Josh Hoover. And these stats are not from 4 games, but 3. 3 games over 1,000 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. I like this guy moving forward. I'm keeping a close eye on him. He was able to get over 4,000 passing yards last season, and I think he's going to do it again. And just speaking on TCU as a whole, I think TCU and Sonny Dykes looks so much more confident and are able to successfully convert and execute these aggressive play calls that they weren't really able to do last season. And it's all because you've got Josh Hoover returning and you've got a slew of great wide receivers. And SMU. We said it. We said that they were going to be frauds. They are frauds this season. Out of the playoffs after their Baylor loss, I said it was over. I said it was over for it. Now it's even more over. And then our next game. I'll admit I was completely wrong about this one. You got me. Number 13 Ole Miss destroys Tulane 45-10. And I'll admit I was completely wrong about the Tulane potentially coming in here and winning. Kentucky was able to do it last year. Yes, they're an SEC team. I thought Tulane just kind of had this momentum going forward, but it just got completely derailed as soon as they stepped foot in Ole Miss. And I'll say this. I did not think that this Ole Miss team was this good. And they're doing it with their second-string quarterback, Trinidad Chambliss. That's a fun name. That's honestly a great name. And in the last 2 games, he has had back-to-back over 400-yard games. That's rushing and passing the ball. And he's had a combined 5 touchdowns in both of these games. I think they found their quarterback one. I don't think Austin Simmons is going to be doing it for him anymore. But this Ole Miss team completely embarrassed Jake Retzlaff and me. And this Tulane team losing this bad really hurts their chances of the playoff bid, in my opinion, because I think that they're going to look at, oh, what was their one loss? Ooh, it was a bad loss. And it was so bad of a loss. I mean, the stadium looked practically empty by the fourth quarter. So that's how bad it was. And then our next game is number 4, Miami, taking care of business like I thought they would, beating Florida 26-7. Florida now going 1 for 3 on the season. But if Florida's offense played like their defense, this could be one of the best teams in the nation. But Lagway once again has disappointed us, getting only 67 pass yards and looked very bad in the wet field conditions. And if you want to talk about disappointing stats, the most disappointing of this game probably has to be Florida had 0 third down conversions. 0. And Miami was able to be the first team, and I think this should give credit to Miami and how good they are. Miami was able to be the first team in 12 games to score against Florida for their first drive against them in the game. But Beck did not look like the Superman we thought he was, but I still think that this Florida defense is one of the best in the nation, even though their offense isn't there. Like I'm saying, if their offense was there, we would be seeing some great things from Florida right now. Billy Napier's not looking good in Florida. And then we got Arizona State beating Baylor 27-24 on a walk-off field goal. And someone that didn't embarrass me this week was Sam Levitt. I said that he was going to show up, and he did. He finally showed up, and he was able to complement their great running game and squeaked out a win against Baylor. Still, I think a very huge win because of the loss that they suffered to Mississippi State. And this is in conference. They need to win these games if they want to make the Big 12 and title game and have a good chance at making the playoffs. And then number 25, USC, took care of business as well and beat Michigan State 45-31, going 4-0 on the season so far. And USC is quietly winning in dominant fashion, but play Illinois next week and could either fall back out of favor or continue rising. But I think overall for this USC team, it's good for them that I feel like the hype has the media attention hasn't really been around them. They've slowly been doing their thing, handling business. They've been slowly winning, they've quietly winning games, not making a lot of noise. And I think the hype, or as Nick Saban would put it, rat poison, can really get to programs like USC when you're in California. There's a lot of stars there. There's a lot of noise that could get you distracted. But I think Lincoln Riley also knows he has to win. And I would like to see Lincoln Riley do well this season and slowly bring this program back to the relevancy it should be at. But watch out, because they're quietly winning, and they can continue to quietly win and continue to quietly be successful if they win against Illinois. And then our next slate of games was number 21, Michigan was able to beat Nebraska 30-27. And all I could say is Justice Haynes, the Alabama running back transfer, has shown up in the college football scene and has been a great fit at Michigan since he arrived there. And him combined with Bryce Underwood really just continues to make strides since the Oklahoma game in developing as a quarterback. And I think these Michigan fans and the Michigan faithful should be very excited for what the future holds with him as quarterback and what you can build upon with him on the team. It seems like he's a leader. It seems like he is a competitor. And it seems like he's bringing this program on a trend upwards. You just got to be patient with him. He's a rookie, true freshman. My bad. And then this was a shocker of a game. Very, very shocker of a game. Syracuse 34, Clemson 21. The fall from grace for Dabo continues to just fall and fall. Clemson falls to 1-3. First time since 2004. 21 years. In this game, and my tone has gotten a little sad. It's gotten a little slower because I'm getting serious right now. This is becoming a serious problem for Clemson. Dabo, in this game, was outcoached and outplayed by Syracuse the entire game. You could sit back here and say that this is all because Dabo Swinney, he's not going out and getting people in the portal. He's not utilizing NIL. And you may say, yes, that could be a problem. It could be a reason. But tell me why a team that won the ACC last season, went to the playoffs last season, had Cade Klubnik, a quarterback that was a Heisman favorite coming into the season, go 1-3 with a lot of his roster returning, and a lot of people saying that this was the year that he breaks out with all of these veterans because his defense is good. He's got multiple, I think, draft picks, and I think a couple of first rounders in his roster, and they seemingly can't win. So I don't think it's an NIL and kind of him not being to adapt with the times. It's him not being effective coaching anymore. Clemson has truly lost their edge, and Dabo looked like, I think he was shedding a tear, crying after the game during the alma mater. And I think it's because he knows that this season and his future at Clemson could be in jeopardy if something drastic does not change. I'm just going to put it out there again. Stanford. What? Okay. Next game. Memphis, baby. 32, Arkansas, 31. Memphis came back down 18 in this game. Memphis, 4-0. And guess what they're doing? They're getting that signature win in their little resume. When they go to the playoff committee, they're like sliding up their resume going, you see that? See that bad boy? Yeah, double check that. Oh yeah, that's an SEC win. SEC win. And that win gives them a 35% chance of making the college football playoff. And before you say, is that the under review computers? No, it's the ESPN computers. Okay? Because we were wrong last time. So it was the ESPN computers that's what they're saying. But this American Conference is starting to shape up to be the strongest group of 5 conference there is. And I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch. But we had Memphis actually making it to the American Conference title game back in our group of 5 Outlook episode. So we said it first. Watch out for them. Watch out. Memphis is coming in hot. And then I think one of the crazier games that took me by surprise, and one that continues to really stress me out in this one team, is UNLV beating Miami, Ohio 41-38. UNLV 4-0 on the season. You may say, Nick, it's just UNLV. Why are they stressing you out? Well, I will bring this up every week. I had them ranked in our preseason top 25, and I have them making the playoff as the group of 5. And so that's why I'm always stressed week to week, and Dan Mullen's really putting me through the ringer. But UNLV somehow just does it again, amazes me, and wins by being down not once, but twice by 14. And I don't know what it is. They have some sort of magic around them. They just have this willingness to win, even when their starting quarterback, Alex Orji, has been injured. And their backup quarterback, yeah, he didn't play great, but they came up clutch when they needed to. And this was just a insanely fun game to watch. They're like a heart attack team, because I don't know like when this is actually going to be a stressful game, when this is actually going to be a team that is going to lose, but their schedule is very favorable from here on out. And I think their biggest game in the future is against Boise State. So if they can beat Boise State and continue to just dominate, watch out, because they could be a playoff team. And then Friday night, Friday. Oh, boy. Tulsa, 19. Oklahoma State, 12. Yes, you heard that right. Oklahoma State lost. I think this is Mike Gundy's last season at Oklahoma State. I think it's safe to say. But I feel like they will let him finish the season because he's been there for so long. He's done so much for the program. I feel like they will let him stay, and they are going to let him kind of just ride out the season because it's just not looking good. It's not looking good for him. But that wraps up all of our top matchups and notable games around the country. And then we have to talk about how some of these results from this week affect the season going further and just our overall week 4 takes. Now, first one, I know Miami plays at Miami Gardens, the Dolphins Stadium, but the Miami game day set was honestly pretty beautiful, pretty awesome, and I think Pat McAfee and Nick Saban are starting to steal the show as an iconic duo almost every week and seem like a perfect pair with each other. And I always love seeing Nick Saban on Pat McAfee's show before game day. I think it's a great duo, and it always creates some funny moments and some very truthful moments. The group of 5 playoff hopefuls have shifted around a little bit. It's still the same 4 teams we've discussed, but it's in this order: Memphis, then UNLV, USF, and then Tulane. I just feel like Tulane, with that loss, it did not look good for them. And then another take that we stated earlier, Josh Hoover. I think they play, I believe, Texas Tech next week, so I mean that's going to be a very tough game. But if they win that game, TCU and Josh Hoover may just mess around and make a strong Big 12 run. I'm just putting it out there. They just might mess around and do that. They might mess around and find out. And then with the discussion and thought of Texas Tech, since NIL, college football in the state of Texas has elevated. And we have seen that with Texas Tech this year. We have seen that with SMU. TCU, Baylor, all of these, Texas A&M too, Texas. I mean, they're all evolving since NIL. They're all getting better. And I wonder why. Maybe it's because it's one of the largest economies in the U.S. and it has one of the biggest populations for viewers. It has one of the biggest recruiting pools ever. So I think that's why the state of Texas is starting to just elevate, because of NIL. I mean, it seems like everyone out there has oil. They got oil. Oil, you cooking? And speaking of this new era, new wave of college football that we are finding ourselves in, we're starting to really see head coaches slowly beginning to arrive in a new wave with this new era arriving. And what I mean by that, I mean that we're starting to see younger head coaches. Kenny Dillingham, he's like the youngest. He's like 32 years old. It's insane. And this new wave of head coaches are able to adapt faster. They understand what it is. The players can relate to them more, because these older coaches who can't change or are hesitant to the change or did not want to change at first with the times, it's beginning to show who they are and who can't get it done in this new era. And I think that this coaching carousel for this offseason could be one of the most volatile we have seen in a while. And then for Indiana, Cignetti, he's finally silenced the haters and has more gumption in play calling. I think this Indiana team is one of those find out teams. I think we're going to sit back and find out whether or not they're actually going to make a push for the Big Ten title game and the playoffs, or it was just Illinois being a bad team. I hope it's just Indiana being that darn good for my sake. And at Florida, Billy Napier, he's a dead man walking. He's a dead man walking in Gainesville. And I think that they just need to not just pay the buyout at the end of the season. Just ride it out with him because you don't want this inconsistency to happen. So by saying that, Florida needs to start and go ahead and get all their ducks in a row, figure out who you want to get next, because for Florida, this next coaching hire needs to be the right one for the program. They don't want a good coach. They need a good coach. This is one of the biggest brands in college football that should be performing, should be getting the high recruits, should be having a coach that can develop these players and have a winning mentality. Because when I see Billy Napier go to the sideline and berate his team, it's actually not berating. He cannot seemingly get mad at anyone, and it's a look that I don't even like. Like I'll give credit to all the other coaches because they are willing to, yell at their starting quarterback that's making millions. So Billy Napier, why can't you? Because Flagway definitely deserves to be yelled at this point. And now for our week 4 closing categories. I think we've got some Heisman potential, guys that are rising up, and our nominations for the hype seat going for next Thursday's show is one, Josh Hoover. Loving this guy, loving this kid, doing great. There was a rumor that he was a furry at the beginning of the season. I don't think it's true, but that would be a crazy development. Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza. He's looking great. He hasn't thrown an interception all season, and he's putting up monster numbers now. And then I'm going to say Amon Hardy. I think Amon Hardy is looking good, and he's on track to get over 2,000 yards rushing, which is crazy when you look at it. So we'll see out of those who we think is actually in the Heisman hype seat on Thursday. And then the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good. I'm giving the good to Oklahoma's defense getting 10 sacks against Auburn. They played phenomenal. Brent Venables did a great job coaching and play calling. And this Oklahoma defense is showing up in a big way against this SEC opponent, and doing it when they need to. They even played great against Michigan. So the Oklahoma defense getting 10 sacks against Auburn is the good. The bad, the Utah Utes turning over the ball four times against Texas Tech, because these were all just terrible turnovers. It was bad. It was just a bad performance by the Utah offense, and it's not something that I like to personally see. And then this ugly. It's really interesting when I look at this, because the ugly goes to the UAB player stomping on the Tennessee kicker's foot. I don't know what was going on inside his head. I don't know why he thought that was appropriate. I don't know why this should happen in college football, but it was an ugly act on the field that shouldn't happen again. It was terrible. It was ugly. And come on, man. It's the kicker. It's the kicker. Come on. Like, are you serious right now? Give the guy a break. He literally missed a field goal to lose to Georgia. I think he's going through enough. You don't need to stomp on his foot. So the UAB player stomping on the Tennessee kicker's foot gets our ugly this week. And then lastly, our player of the week. This is going to none other than TCU wide receiver Eric McAllister. He had 8 receptions, 254 yards, and a hat trick, getting 1, 2, 3 touchdowns on the day. It seemed like anywhere he was on the field, he was open, he was attacking the ball, he was getting it, he was coming up in crucial plays, and he played lights out. So, player of the week, wide receiver Eric McAllister. So that wraps up our week 4 recap episode. So we will see you on our next show on Thursday, as we've got some great games coming into this next week's slate. And some of the big ones that we're going to be taking a look at and microscope on is Oregon at Penn State, LSU at Ole Miss, USC at Illinois, if Illinois is still ranked. And then we got a good one. We got a night game, Alabama at Georgia. Alabama at Georgia, baby. We all know what's happened the last couple of years. I got a lot of Georgia fans, some willing to talk smack, others saying, I'm not saying anything this year. I'm just gonna let ball talk. Let ball talk. And that's what I'm gonna do here. I'm just gonna let ball talk. I'm just gonna let ball talk, because I'll be talking about this game on Thursday. We'll be talking about everything. Who knows? Who knows what's gonna happen? But hopefully it's a classic that we can put in the Nick Watts archive. And I want to also say that be on the lookout possibly for a bonus episode on our key takeaways from the first 4 weeks, the fog of war, and an Instagram post to coincide with that. And with that being said, I'm Nick Watts. Thank all of you for tuning in to this episode, and we'll see you next time when we take more college football under review.